think everybody's here, I think. Yeah, everybody's here, I believe. Oh, Merle is, where's Merle? Merle's here, everybody's here, yeah. Give me the green light to start, somebody. Ready? 2 o'clock? Just give me the, you want to start exactly at 3 o'clock. Good afternoon, everybody. Bonjour, Gima Ogima Nijnakas, Kias Dagi Donji. Chief Wilfred King from Gull Bay First Nation. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for attending today. We have a panel of speakers that are going to speak to you about the wildfire situation in their communities and the impacts they are having. We have an order of speakers. I'm going to do a brief introductory remarks, and I'll have my remarks first, and we'll be followed by Chief Helen Pavla from Namagusa-Gegong First Nation, Chief Pauline Drake from Whitewater First Nation, Chief Lawrence Wanakamek from White Sand First Nation, Chief Michelle Solomon from Fort William First Nation, Chief Merle Loon from Mishkigo-Gaming First Nation, Chief Sol Adlukan from Ibamatong First Nation, and we're going to have Deputy Grand Chief Chris Plain from the Anishinabek Nation, Union of Ontario Indians, and then we're going to have Ontario Regional Chief Abraham Benedict, and then after that we're going to have Grand Chief Elvin Fiddler speak, and then we'll have media and questions for the media in our concluding remarks. First of all, I'd like to announce and thank all the chiefs that are in attendance. We have various chiefs from the territory who are all here. We have council members from each of the communities that are here as well, and we have members and we have evacuees that are here. I want to thank you all for coming out. I also want to recognize we have Merit Stiles, the leader of the NDP party. She's joining us here today, along with Liz Bourgeois, who's our MPP for our region. So I want to thank those as well. And unfortunately, I cannot read all the names of the councillors because we'll have a long list. But I really want to thank the chiefs that are here as well that have come out and support us. So without further ado, we're here today, first of all, because last week when these wildfires started in our territory, all that was talked about on the news was the smoke conditions in the city of Toronto. There was not one word mentioned on the national media about the situation of people literally running for their lives in these fires. I was at the AFN last week along with some of my fellow chiefs that are up here today, and on Wednesday the Ontario caucus had broke and said we want to have an emergency meeting on the wildfire situation, and at that time it was Chief Matanzanine and myself that requested this, and we broke on emergency caucus, and we said we should bring this to the floor at the Assembly of First Nations the next day, which we did. So that's why we're here again, and one of the major reasons why we held this press conference was yesterday Premier Ford did a press release at 10:30 a.m. yesterday, and I had the opportunity to listen to his release, and not once in his speech did he mention First Nations people. He praised himself and his government about what a wonderful job they were doing in fighting these fires. And I reached out to my fellow chiefs, our leaders, and I said, we have to counter what Mr. Ford is saying. What he is saying is not true. He's creating the narrative so that he can basically lie to the Canadians and lie to the people of Ontario. So that's why we're here today, and I'm really glad that we have, a good group of chiefs here that are impacted directly by the fires. So without further ado, I'd like to state Gull Bay First Nation's position, and we're going to hear from the chiefs in the order that I presented. First of all, KZA Gull Bay First Nation calls upon Premier Ford and the Lieutenant Governor Dumont to hold a public inquiry into the province's handling of wildfires. The province's Public Inquiries Act is meant to investigate matters of public interest. The lack of communication and evacuation support should horrify all Canadians, and our community was on its own. The federal government has responsibility here too. We won't accept any jurisdictional disputes. In the year 2026, how could this happen? More importantly, how do we make sure this never happens again? That's what an inquiry must answer. The Chief's current concerns and priorities regarding Ontario wildfire response, emergency management, and leadership accountability. The Chiefs continue to express significant concern regarding the province's response to this year's wildlife emergencies and long-standing systemic issues affecting Northern First Nations and remote communities. While there is appreciation for the professionalism and dedication of frontline personnel, there is a strong view that leadership failures within the provincial system requires immediate action and accountability. Immediate leadership changes within the Ministry of Natural Resources must occur. The Chiefs believe that there's been a serious breakdown in leadership and confidence in the senior management level with MNR. Specifically, the Chiefs are seeking the immediate removal of the current MNR Director, Chris Cuthbertson, the immediate removal of the Assistant Deputy Minister responsible for oversight of MNR fire operations. These actions should occur pending an independent investigation, such as a public inquiry into this year's emergency response and broader systemic issues. The Chief's concern is directed at executive leadership and decision-making rather than operational personnel. A public inquiry and independent review of wildlife fire management and transfer emergency responsibilities. The Chiefs are calling for an immediate public inquiry and an independent investigation into Ontario's wildlife response during the current situation. The review should examine operational decision-making, emergency coordination, communications with First Nations, evacuation planning and execution, resource allocation, and overall provincial preparedness. The Chiefs believe that the province should be transitioning responsibility for emergency wildfire response and coordination from MNR to the emergency preparedness and response. The rationale is that the emergency management should be coordinated through the ministry specifically established to lead provincial emergency preparedness and response. Importantly, the Chief wishes to recognize and acknowledge the professionalism of frontline personnel, including local MNR staff, wildlife firefighters, water bomber pilots, incident commanders, supervisors, emergency personnel working directly in affected communities. The concern is not with employees who continue to work under extremely difficult conditions, but with senior leadership responsible for policy, planning, oversight, and decision-making. Immediate activation of additional provincial resources through the Ministry Emergency Response Plan. The Chiefs believe that additional provincial resources should be actively and immediately through MEPR and with reduced administrative barriers. The expectation is that communities should not continue to face unnecessary delays or jurisdictional obstacles during active emergencies. There is also frustration that the MNR has received recommendation and feedback over many years regarding wildfire preparedness and emergency response for Northern First Nations and rural Ontario. Questions being raised include what recommendations have been implemented, what measurable improvements have been made, what evidence exists that lessons from previous wildfire seasons have resulted in meaningful changes. The Chiefs believe that these concerns will extend beyond a single community. Although support from municipalities such as Armstrong and neighboring townships have been appreciated, the broader issue affects numerous Northern First Nations and rural municipalities facing similar challenges. The discussion should therefore be framed as a province-wide issue requiring systemic improvements rather than focusing solely on one First Nation. The Premier's role in provincial accountability. The Chiefs believe that the Premier has an opportunity to demonstrate leadership by ensuring that an independent investigation is initiated immediately. Accountability measures are implemented without delay. A clear plan is developed to address deficiencies. If an investigation identifies at the Director or the Assistant Deputy Minister level, appropriate leadership changes should occur promptly. Should senior officials remain in place despite clear evidence of systemic failures, the chiefs believe accountability should extend to the deputy minister and, if necessary, the minister responsible. The chief's view is that this meaningful accountability must occur at the appropriate level of decision-making. There is also concern that if no accountability measures are taken despite identified failures, responsibility ultimately rests with the province's leadership. The chiefs expressed a personal view that the Premier may not yet have a full understanding of the extent of the operational dysfunction and the systemic issues within the current wildfire management structure. There is belief that once fully informed, the Premier would expect meaningful corrective action and structural reform. The chief's primary objective is not to criticize the dedicated frontline emergency personnel whose efforts continue to be respected and appreciated. Rather, the focus is on ensuring that the senior leadership accountability, independent oversight, structural reform of emergency management responsibilities, stronger coordination through MEPR, improved preparedness for Northern First Nations and rural communities, and meaningful action to restore Ontario's confidence in emergency response system before future wildfire seasons. Thank you very much. I will now turn it over to Chief Helen Pavla.
First of all, I just want to say thank you, Chief King, for arranging this for us and organizing everything. Last week I've made did a lot of interviews and statements, so there's it's been hectic and also looking after my community. My members have suffered a great loss, and it's just really hitting us today. I did go for the first walk through the community yesterday. We got flown in with a couple of my elders and my council. And the videos, the pictures that are out there right now don't do justice. It's horrible, it's awful. And those words are just, those words are not enough to explain what we saw. But they prepared a little statement for me because it's really hard to bring everything and speak, everything that's inside me. So just bear with me as I ramble through this, and So it's miigwech to everyone and who has supported with great generosity to my community in our time of great distress. I visited our homelands yesterday, and during a community meeting this morning, I confirmed that there's nothing left but just ashes. My community was devastated. My community was devastated by a forest fire that overtook the homes with great speed and heat. My members barely escaped with the clothes on their backs. My community was left to evacuate without notice and support. On Monday, July 13, this forest fire was spotted outside of the community, and any comments that imply that it was started in the community, this suggestion is completely and utterly false. We do not understand how MNR failed to protect our community. Our road bridges to our community have burned. So Premier Ford, if you're listening, we need your commitment to replace our bridges to the community. While we have been referred to as Collins First Nation, we are not an organized township of Thunder Bay. We are an independent First Nation that built our community without Ontario and Canada's support. We are a member of the Anishinabek Nation, and we are grateful for their ongoing support. While we appreciate Canada's willingness to extend the EMAP services and are treating us like every other First Nation in Canada, we are conferring to Prime Minister Carney. Now is the time to do what is morally right and approve our claim to be recognized as a First Nation in Canada. We need your commitment and help today. Miigwech.
Bonjour.
Okay.
Chimigwech, everybody. Thank you, Wilfred, for providing this opportunity to speak on behalf of my, from our community. There's so much social media stuff going on out there too, and I was just sitting here listening to everything that's being said, and I agree to everything that's been spoken and mentioned. The only thing that really impacts me deeply, and I'm trying to hold my tears back, is that the late Chief Arlene Slipperjack had worked tirelessly for years and years trying to build her community for which we can pass down generations to my next generations. And I only been in term for, this is my 3rd year, and having to face this right off the hop is very devastating to me personally and to my community members who have built their homes out of their own pocket money. And I'm in the same position as Chief Pabla. So there's many things that we had lost in our territory. If you've never been to Whitewater Lake, it was very beautiful. We have a lot of personal, historical, like I'm telling you, historical pieces of that area that has been lost. Stating back to, I'm going to mention the name, Wendell Beckwith, the inventor. His property was right across the lake. We grew up. My ancestors grew up. My mother grew up with him. And my aunt, Ruby Slipperjack. She was the last one to leave the community without knowing that that was going to be the last time she stepped foot on that land. So it was heartbreaking to tell her that everything was gone, and we were aware of a fire on July the 8th. It was seen as we were all dropping off supplies for the next group to go in. It was identified there was a fire out towards Grayson Lake area. It was by itself, and then get a phone call last Monday, July 15th, we have to evacuate. No notice, nothing. If we had been aware of the severity of the fires at that time, that we would have probably, if we had to, I'm just saying, we probably would have went in and tried to salvage something. Because we are a flying community, we're based, we supply everything in, we bring everything in on float planes, and you know how costly that is. And Chimigwech too, the outfitters that take care of us. And we're not in this alone. It's across the board. I see friends out there, acquaintances that lost their property in different First Nations and different communities. And this is all northwestern Ontario, all of Canada. I cannot express enough sadness and despair for everybody that's affected, that's being impacted, that's continually being impacted by the evacuations. I really would like to support our chiefs, and I'm here to support them as they are here to supporting me and my community, that we are here for each other in the time of need. And there's so many people that lost so much. I cannot express again, we need that support. And again, the lack of resources that were out there to begin with. It's heartbreaking to hear everything. And sometimes we assume that we're being taken care of, but we're not. It's just last minute, we're the last people to be told and notified. And I know a lot of people were told last second, get out, and then people try to get out and they were blocked. They had to escape on boats. And that's the part that I'm worried about, is I really want that notification, advance notice if possible. Again, I understand the conditions that we were faced during this past week with the heat. I understand all the tired, like firefighters working hard. I support them, and I wish they had more support themselves. We don't have enough crews, we don't have enough water bombers out there. There was stated out in news that we have so many planes, but when you realistically, when you think about it, we don't. We need more supports out there for everybody. And the things that that keep crossing my mind again is that I really wish things were different. I wish we can turn back time and go back and be aware, like be notified that, okay, there's a fire in your area, please be ready. We don't know what's gonna happen. All of a sudden, these one little fire turns into 2, 3, 4, 5. All of a sudden, there's 67, there's 100, and they're all joining together. And in my area, Wabakimik Park, it joined pretty quickly, and it devastated my ancestral home. And I'm proud of my supports that I've had with everybody that come forward and reached out. I appreciate everybody, and I'm here to support all the chiefs that are affected and everybody in Canada, in Ontario, especially northwestern Ontario, because this is our homeland. Again, we're all related. When we're talking about this, we're all related to someone in each community. So, chimikwach.
Finally. Bonjour. Go zit in Disney Cast. Mang do dam. Op towns in Kali Abunchian. Big wetch in the kit work in the Magi by Yaek. Or you was in the Mek. You big wetch Aki and you Makanak Maria Mutbiot or Gian Kunik. Winge, Ksunikiu, or get the Nagdob and the Nishnawbe. I very out monkey. My given name is Chief Lawrence Wanakamick, Whitewater First Nation. I'd like to thank everyone for coming here, membership, press, band council, and the staff. And as I was saying in the language, really thank my chief and council and the staff, especially for the past week, that they worked tirelessly and working very hard to organize things and coordinating stuff here to help the membership and Armstrong people. As we got evacuated, or self-evacuating, as I call it, last Monday, we didn't get no order to move. We just moved on ourselves because the smoke and the fire was getting close to the community, and people were afraid to stay and wait to get that order. It's if the order came later, our community wouldn't been, our membership wouldn't be here, most of them anyway. And it's a blessing that the membership here and the council in the community had evacuated the people, and I'm really thankful for that. As I wasn't in the community at the time, I did get calls and from people that offering support. I did get a call from Minister Haidu, and what I'm really disappointed is the federal ministers, didn't reach out to offer their help. So that's a bone of contention for me for all these days, the past week, when this crisis started to happen. It seemed to be getting worse at that time, and I'm grateful that Mr. Haidu reached out and offered her help. And this is the thing I keep mentioning in my interviews, that the federal government is not helping or trying to offer us any help. So I'm disappointed in that way that they weren't there or are not there today. I see the provincial ministers are here, and I'm happy to see them here. I just want to tell the people, White Sand, that and Armstrong, that we are working hard to help our people. And like I said, the incident command, White Sand Incident Command, is doing a great job and working on logistics and other areas that that our people need. We have set up a bunch of offices here in this hotel to, to help our people, and I'm happy about that. And I was saying earlier, I called up my incident commander here to see if he had anything in writing. So, and they just gave me one here, and it's in large print, so it'll be short. It's not that I'm getting blind, but I think they do. I am getting blind. I like to say I feel like an old res dog, going blind, and my arms getting broken, and my hind legs are not working. I'm all ribs, and I'm not going to say that, but anyway, I like to put humor in some of my my speeches and talks. So here's the official or the statement from White Sand. First of all, Ontario took too long to act on our, and it's still refusing to take responsibility on what happened last week and over the week. And it was just yesterday, I guess, I started getting a complete picture where the MNRF was starting to help. White Sand First Nation remains deeply disappointed by the province's response before, during, and after the July 13 wildfire evacuation. The record is clear, as Chief King had alluded to in his statement. At approximately 2:30, White Sand band manager received information that there was a large fire near Mattice Lake. At about 3 o'clock, the Ministry of Natural Resources advised that a helicopter was being sent to investigate, and subsequently reported there was no fire. There was smoke, lots of smoke. White Sand did not wait, as I had said earlier. By 4 o'clock, our leadership was arranging transportation, contacting hotels in Thunder Bay, and preparing for possible evacuation. By 4:30, some community members had already begun evacuating themselves. At approximately 5:30, a member of council attended MNR Armstrong Base and was told that the community was safe and there was nothing to worry about. White Sand requested the assurances in writing. It was never provided. At 6:30, with no official evacuation order issued, White Sand warned members to prepare for a possible evacuation. 7 o'clock, MNR continued to advise that no evacuation order was in place despite dense smoke, and suggest that only vulnerable community members be evacuated or relocated. It was not until 8 p.m. that MNR finally advised White Sand to begin evacuating. 5 minutes later, Chief and Council formally declared a state of emergency. The official mandatory evacuation notice was not issued until approximately 9:30 that evening. By then, White Sand had already mobilized leadership for staff, volunteers, transportation, and emergency partners. Evacuation vehicles continued leaving into the early morning. At approximately 12:30 a.m., MNR and OPP personnel on site were themselves directed to evacuate, leaving some of the community members still behind. It's my understanding that people continued moving during the night. MNR took too long to recognize the danger, too long to issue clear direction, and too long to order the evacuation. White Sand's own preparation and decision-making helped prevent an already dangerous situation from becoming worse. The province's response since the evacuation has been equally disappointing. White Sands stepped forward to transport, house, feed, and support people from both White Sand First Nation and the neighboring community of Armstrong. We did not stop to debate jurisdictions while families were fleeing wildfire. Incidentally, that we have White Sand members also living in the community of Armstrong. The province cannot rely on White Sand to fill the gaps in its emergency response and then draw jurisdiction lines around the invoice. This is not emergency management, it is politics. White Sand did what governments are supposed to do during the emergency: protect people first and resolve administrative matters afterward. Ontario must now do the same. And also, I like to, like I said, the federal government, I call upon them to come and reach White Sand, band council, staff. I am crying. I'm crying for their help. We have people here that want to go home. We have people that are afraid of their properties. We have people here, just want to go home, and they're not used to living in the city. They want to be with the land, whatever left is behind with all the fire. And I want to also say that I got really emotional when I heard that Nokiiwin, what got burnt down that evening. It was really emotional for me because I look upon our First Nations in that area, as neighbors and good neighbors, and I feel for them that they have lost everything. And I also wanted to thank all the chiefs that have come to for this press conference and their support. I just want to also mention that First Nation down east offered their support, and I'm sure there's other First Nations all over that want to help. And I've been getting emails and phone calls to get these people wanting to help. With that, Chumigwech, and this thing here says 3 minutes, but I guess that's okay. Chumigwech.
Good afternoon, Ani Bojo, Aski Mekana, Ikwe Dejnakaz, Makwa Dodem, and Mkiwa Jun and Doji. I'm Michelle Solomon, Chief of Fort William First Nation. I'm honored to be here today, and I'm joined by some of our leadership of Fort William First Nation, we are here today to be a support to the communities that have been directly impacted by the wildfires. And I guess, our leadership is certainly will be discussing, how we can be a support to those people who have been evacuated into the city of Thunder Bay. I've never been evacuated, and my heart is really with the communities who have been so significantly impacted, the people whose homes have been destroyed, and all the tragedy and trauma that has brought to those communities and the people of those communities. I really want to stand with the recommendation that has been brought forward by Chief Wilfred King. And, I think the best thing going forward is really examining how we got to this place so that this doesn't happen again. We know wildfires are not going anywhere. We know wildfires are going to continue to happen. But devastation of community should not be happening. The complete devastation of any community should never happen. We've heard of devastation of also surrounding areas and lodges and campsites that are around these communities. And, you know, my heart goes out to them as well. But most importantly, you know, I stand with these chiefs in calling on the government to implement a public inquiry and an investigative review of how this all happened and look at ways to move forward and not have something like this happen again. Miigwech.
Hello. Chbo matchstan Nishnawbe. But the money nachma jen meto. We nanish madzinga meaning to missing marking. Jana nagachi thing on Nishnawbe. Me nanish gajan dename going. Jana nagachi thing marking. Me way on Jishkana going on Anishinabek. Giwid magunaben where sketch a year and on Jishkana going on Nishnawbe. Get this in the man, then Yaga Giwin to Mushkan in them shrooms, ye, or Knamagain. Mr. Wega me dawn, Gigomaka. Before I make my comments regarding what's going on today, I'd like to acknowledge God and Creator. I thank God and Creator for the gift of life and the gift of breath. And my prayers always start off that way. That's how I begin my day. Knowing that I'm going to have a meeting, interact with people, my prayers go out to those people I'm going to meet for that day. My prayers extend to their families, their communities, and their surroundings. Also, I like to give thanks to Mother Earth. A lot of times, when I was elected chief, I was told about a story about two chiefs. We have leader chiefs, and we have warrior chiefs. Once I became chief, I didn't know which one I was until as I progressed through my terms, and I come to realize that I'm a warrior chief, and I take that very seriously. Not only do I stand for Mother Earth and fight for Mother Earth, that goes with all the animals on Mother Earth, water, land, air. And when we say Anishinabek, this is the teaching. This is what I said in my language initially. Anishinabek is Anishinabek mean mankind, if you want to really translate that. That's who we are. It doesn't matter what skin color we are on this earth. We all have the responsibility to look after each other on this earth. Those are the gifts we are given. That's natural law. And a lot of times when I'm not sure of how I'm going to present myself, I ask God and Creator for that direction. And natural law provides that answer to me. So what I'm going to say today really is about being united. When I was asked if I wanted to be a part of this press conference, when I was at home, I was also at home working on protecting my people, looking after my people, and making sure that they're arriving safely at their host locations. I take that seriously because I'll be the last one to leave that community if I had to. I want to make sure everybody leaves. Knowing that everything is going on around me, I'm also thinking about those other nations that have lost property and had to flee those lands. And my prayers go out to the communities. You guys are in my heart, you're in my prayers. And the people of that community. So last night when I got this call, do you want to attend this press conference? I sat around amongst my people and said, what do you think? Should I go? And of course they said to me, go. An elder said to me, go. Go represent our community as a unity. Go share that message of unity, because we have to reunite in these types of hard times. That's our responsibility as people, as Anishinabek people, and also being a representative of Mother Earth. So really about my message is really about being united. We take care of our own. We do. We honestly do. We take care of our own. We engage in taking care of our own. My scenario is no different from all the other nations that have went through this. I initiated a call back in Monday, and our first people weren't evacuated to society. We took upon ourselves to just move our people. We're worried about the costs and engaging the government afterwards. We moved our elderly and our vulnerable first. I mean, Anishinabek, that's what we were taught. Take care of your elders, not Nagachik. If I could move the animals too, but the animals will take care of themselves too. Once that was done, obviously we take care of our home. We take care of what needs to be taken care of at home. So when I was thinking about how do I send a message to the governments, the province and Canada. First, we are united in this. We are. We're always going to be united as Anishinabek people. And that's the message I want to send. We are united. Look at how many people are here today. And I urge you to stay united and be in that mindset to take care of each other. So as an elected chief, I have a responsibility to really look after my people. Not just my community, the nation around me. I'm a part of Nishnawbe Nation, but that continues to Ontario. So I have a responsibility, we all do, as a leadership group here, because we are elected leaders. Our people felt necessary for us to be leaders. And again, I say it to everybody, I represent you. I represent being a warrior chief. I come to realize I come here to fight and challenge the systems that are in place that do not work for our people. We all know that. So, in stating this, I challenge Premier Ford. I challenge the Prime Minister of Canada, Carney. Invest in where you need to invest. Protect the people you say you want to protect, and protect our lands. Because not only are we affected as First Nations people, we have our, what I call Caucasian brothers and sisters, and other nationalities that have suffered as well. We still have to look after them too, and be a voice for them. Because we are Anishinabek, mankind. That's what it means in our language. So I challenge, invest where you need to invest. Those resources that we need to act immediately to take care of our own and our lands. And with that, I'd say, and take it to heart.
Good afternoon. My name is Saul Adlukin. I'm the Chief of Whitewater First Nation. I will only have a minute because Chief Lawrence took most of my time. Anyway, I always do that when I'm about to speak in a public place, just to bring out some laughter and just to, yes, we are going through a lot of hard times, but our way of life is always we laugh, So, but anyway, I've got a few things I want to say. One of the things I want to say that really struck me when we were having problems with trying to get PEOC to respond to us, when are we going to be evacuated? And seeing my frustrations, I guess, about talking about that at the radio station, as well as to the members of my community. You know, we haven't got a reply yet. We haven't got a reply. That's going on 2.5 days. A young girl, 14, walked up to me and said, how come this is happening? Why aren't you getting answers similar to that? But I'm just, and he said, is that another way of government trying to get rid of Indigenous people? And it really struck me for a girl at 14 to say that. And she was not living in an era of residential schools and 60s scoop and all the other things that we went through health and all that. So they grasp and hear what we say in our communities and what we say in radio stations when we announce things, the difficulties we have today. And it continues to happen. So I want to start by talking about how negligent both levels of government are in terms of protecting our First Nations in northwestern Ontario. First of all, I want to say that I think, the governments are completely blinded by trying to be, I don't know how to say that, but they are after our resources yet, so they can leave their own legacy behind and what they did for the rest of Canada, and forgot that the very people that live in that territory own those resources, own those lands as a nation. And they go ahead and do what they need to do to get at them, our resources, various resources. Weaken the legislation. I think that's their priority, when it should be the Indigenous people of this country since time immemorial. We are a resilient people. We went through a lot as a nation. We are still here, and we're going to continue to be here, regardless what we go through, like today, the forest fires and that. We have started today that we're going to be united, and we will continue to be united as a nation and speak directly to the government. Minister Ford, especially, Premier Ford, especially Minister Rickford, I think doesn't even know his job description. Why is he called Minister of Indigenous Affairs? Shouldn't he be the first one to jump up and get his people organized to tackle the danger of the forest fires? I, for one, say, Minister Rickford, I think it's about time you step down. This, I had a little spat with Minister Rickford a year ago, and he called me, I want to say that, he called me Uncle Saul, just because he was good friends with my nephews when he was a nurse in Fort Hope. And I said, what? I don't even know you. That was at a chief's meeting. But anyway, what is wrong with those people? They say things to you that you will like. They give you things that you will like, so you forget what you want to protect. They want to show you, they think they want to show you, we're on your side. And it's a fine example today as we speak. They are not for us What that tells me as a nation, as a chief, is we need to reunite. Anything from this issue now until, and as well as health and everything else, we need to do that. We cannot use the little gifts the government is doing to us now. We got to say, no, we got other First Nations. That's what you call divide and conquer. Don't you think so? We have heard it before, and it's continuing to happen. That has to stop. Our mentality has to change, that we need to fight together. And that's what I am thinking right now. Regardless who you are, we are a nation. And there, like Chief Lone said, there are many people out there that are on our side, regardless the color of their face, because they enjoy the same things we enjoy today. So that's what I feel about that. Anyway, let me go back to the initial stage of my our situation back home. When the fire started, it was directly across the lake. The next day, it was across the lake. Our lake is 17 kilometers wide. I mean long, about 5 miles. I mean 5 kilometers, you know. But you know, it was right across. The only reason they did not bring out their resources, firefighters, bombers, and that, it was the wind was shifting the other way. We were not getting impacted. And we all know this, the wind's going to shift one of these days. 2 days later, the wind shifted. And you know, it was so dark, and we haven't even, and the smoke was horrible, and ashes were flying into our community. Hot spots were coming from all over the place, and still they did not move. What we did was we contacted the federal government, and we talked this, you know, and the third day on at about midnight, a lady named Lisa Hathaway called me that they had obtained and secured CRA aircrafts, military planes, and we started to mobilize our people the next day, and we did it pretty quick. We had three aircrafts. But you know what? Yes, I do really appreciate what the federal government did on our behalf. But there were still no bombers flying, water bombers flying around in that territory. There were no resources on the ground. There were no choppers. You know, that tells me Ontario has completely disregarded the safety of Indigenous communities in northwestern Ontario, and that has to change. Our elders are displaced, our vulnerable are displaced, our young people, newborn. I have 946 members in Niagara Falls, all the vulnerable, including some of the helpers and all. And of course, you know, new territory, they investigate. We've had a little bit of hiccups there with our members, and we're continuing to work on it so we can, you know, our policy when we did that, the last evacuation and today, we will evacuate as many people as we can. If it's 946 like it is now, we will bring back 946 into the community, safe and sound. That is what our goal is, and we'll continue to do that. It didn't have to be. Our community didn't know there was going to be wildfires. It was extremely hot. You know, 41, 42, I think at one point, it was 47, I think it was, I heard. And it was dry. And that one day, thunderstorm, dry thunderstorm and lightning came by, south of us, about 5 miles. And a few days later, that's when all the fires sparked up. And the other thing I want to mention before I'm sure Lawrence won't mind if I, no? But anyway, is the hot spots, since we didn't get any help from MNR, we had to do our own. We had our own firefighters that are qualified, S100s, and we have a few that are S200s. So we deployed them into that area under our own initiative. Because when those hot spots get going, if it's hot again, they'll flame up. So we did that. And we also initiated a fire berm. I don't know, there's a word for that, where we had our doozers go around the back of our community, and we ordered sprinklers. So we're not just sitting around yelling at the government. We're doing our own thing as well to protect our people. That is the first. So that's what we did, and we had our own people go out in the lake and drive around, look for smoke, so our group of firefighters can go put them out. So, you know, and that was not necessary. That did need to happen. So I'd like to thank my crew back home, as well as in Niagara Falls, and the people that donated, and the people that offered assistance, and especially those people in Southern Ontario. Some of the First Nations there had contacted me for donations and that to go to our members in Niagara Falls. I am so grateful for that. And that's what you call coming together as a nations. So we need to continue to do that. I guess that'll be for Lawrence taking my mic away. Anyway, I thank you for that, and I totally support the first speaker and what we should do moving forward. Thank you very much, Chief King. And not only that, we should, not only forest fires in our territory, we're having severe problems with health issues in the territory. We need to sit around. Just call me, eh? That's it. Anyway, health issues and numerous other things that we are not supported enough. Yes, there is some from both levels of government. So we need to tackle all the other issues, and we should be sitting like this as chiefs addressing the both levels of government where we are. And those are the data we have collected is raw data. That's the actual data. So we're not wrong. They are. So in closing, thank you very much for everybody that's listening here, the chiefs that have joined the table, and also anybody else that was on on social media supporting Indigenous people of northwestern Ontario and providing donations. I do thank you very much. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Are we getting an encore? Good afternoon, everybody. Like my peer beside me, I have a very large font. I won't be very long. You can probably read it from there. Ani, my name is Chris Plain. Given the Maga Indigenous cause, I'm Durang Donjaba, Anike, Ugama, Nishnawbe, and Dao. I am the Deputy Grand Council Chief for the Anishinabek Nation, and I am proud to be here today on behalf of the Anishinabek Nation to support Namagusa Gig. And Grand Council Chief Linda DeBosque sends her regrets. She cannot be here with us today, so I have accepted the responsibility to speak urgently to you on her behalf and on behalf of the Anishinabek Nation. As many of you know, the Anishinabek Nation comprised of 39 communities, roughly 70,000 citizens, a few of which are up here. All of these communities aren't part of the Anishinabek Nation. Some of them belong to other political organizations. So my advocacy today is here to support everybody, including Chief King, who I'm thankful for bringing us together. And I couldn't support his recommendations anymore, but I'm here to advocate on behalf of Namagusa-Gagan. Today I stand before you to address a critical issue affecting Namagusa-Gagan First Nation, also known as the Collins community. This community has endured profound hardship and is in urgent need of support. The community's history predates the existence of Canada itself. For generations, they have relied on their land, upheld their traditions of life, and supported themselves with resilience and pride. Despite their long-standing presence and contributions and their recognition as status Indians, their community remains unrecognized by the federal government of Canada. While all recognized First Nations across the country benefit from federal recognition, granting access to essential programs, funding, and resources, Namagusa-Gagan remains excluded. This lack of official recognition has significant ramifications, particularly in these moments of crisis. Recently, as we all know, the community was struck by the devastating forest fire that destroyed their homes, their lands, and their community infrastructure, all of it gone. The fire left them with nothing but the clothes on their backs and material things, but it didn't take away from their hope and their resiliency to rebuild. And in the aftermath, I can tell you that they'll be reaching out to various agencies, including Indigenous Services Canada, Canadian Mortgage Housing Corporation, National Indigenous Collaborative Housing Incorporated, and other corporate partners seeking support and assistance. Regrettably, due to Namagusa-Gagan's unrecognized status, they are barred from many of these vital programs. This exclusion hampers their ability to rebuild and recover, forming Namagusa-Gagan to confront adversity without the necessary support. Why is this the case in 2026? The reality underscores an essential truth. The federal recognition is not merely symbolic. It is a crucial gateway to tangible resources, funding, and opportunities that underpin community resilience and development. Recognition enables communities to access funding for housing, infrastructure, economic growth, and social services. Without it, communities like Namagusa-Gagan remain vulnerable, marginalized, and incapable of pursuing sustainable futures. Furthermore, their situation reveals a broader issue of inequity and inconsistency in the distribution of support amongst First Nations in Canada. While most communities benefit from recognition and associated programs, few others, such as Namagusa-Gagan, are left behind due to bureaucratic delays and political indecision. Such disparities undermine the principles of fairness and justice that are foundational to reconciliation and nationhood. Therefore, we are calling upon the federal and provincial governments, private sector partners, and all Canadians to acknowledge the urgent need for equitable support. We urge everyone to advocate for the federal recognition of the Namagusa-Gagan First Nation. Achieving recognition would honor their identity, uphold their inherent rights, and facilitate access to support necessary now to rebuild and secure prosperous future for Namagusa-Gagan, their children, and their elders. We invite you to stand with us in advocating for recognition, equity, and justice. Your awareness, your voice, and your actions can profoundly impact Namagusa-Gagan's community's ability to recover, thrive, and their full potential. Miigwech for your compassion, your generosity, and your unwavering commitment to building a more inclusive and equitable Canada. Miigwech.
Sego, good afternoon. What's going on, Laudos? My name is Abram Benedict. I'm the Ontario Regional Chief and the Mohawk of Akwesasne. It's very unfortunate that I have come here for the reason today, but I'm also honored to stand beside the leadership at the table here and everybody in this room that has been supporting and has gone through so much this far. I do want to acknowledge the territory in which we are on and thank Chief Solomon for welcoming us here and also the support that she has extended. Miigwech to Chief King for putting this together. I acknowledge all of our leadership here, the strength that they have shown not only today, but over the last week, 2 weeks, to not only their citizens, but everybody at this table, and stepping forward and ensuring that they're doing what they have to do to keep their communities safe. You know, in this country, there's 200 active, in this province, there's almost 200 active wildfires in northern Ontario. We've heard all of our leadership talk about how that's impacted them. But one thing that's quite clear is the system that supports First Nations or supports communities around emergency management is broken. I don't know how many of you know, though, that First Nation communities, and I heard today the government talking about on reserve is responsibility of the federal government. But what happens in emergencies is that the federal government contracts the provincial government to respond. The federal government only pays the bill. The province is the one who makes the decisions, calls the shots. That means that they're a service provider. And I knew that when these fires were starting to get bad, I was really concerned about the ability for the province to respond, because who does the province respond to first? Is the first service people that they provide to Ontarians. And the First Nations are a service, they provide a service provider. And I knew that this was going to be a challenge, and that's why we had issued a statement and we talked about the jurisdiction, this jurisdiction of football. Lots of decisions have been made without our community leadership being at the table, and that's completely unacceptable. We've heard how calls have been made for more information. In my previous work that I've done, I was a community leader of my community. I know that community citizens come to their chief and council, look for direction, look for them to provide guidance. Without our leadership in this room, without having adequate information, real-time information, it makes it very difficult for them. I acknowledge all the leadership who took the initiative, who was able to take the initiative to be able to send people out and to do the best that they have. They do not. Many of our nations don't have the equipment that Ontario, that municipalities have. They don't have the technology to go out, to use drones. They don't have helicopters to be able to spot them out there. And so our communities were doing the best that they can while the calls went unanswered into the province, which is completely unacceptable. It's quite clear that moving forward, there needs to be, the jurisdictional barriers need to come down. Our community leadership needs to be at the table where those vital decisions are made, where those decisions where we heard the chief talk about, a couple of days ahead, they were not told. Somebody knew, but that information wasn't being shared. We need to continue to ensure that we're supporting one another. I acknowledge Chief Loon in talking about the unity in the room. My language, we say we come together and we talk about Skana, in one mind. And we're going to continue to do that, and we're going to continue to support dedicated First Nation fire resources. Many of our communities in this province don't even have fire departments. So imagine having to deal with forest fires when you don't have the equipment, the proper resources to do that. We're not putting out car fires, not putting out small structure fires, hectares of fires. And the chief talked about how small ones came together, created a big fire of force, the heat that was felt. Our communities are not equipped to deal with that. Emergency management in this province needs to change. The system is broke, but resources need to be deployed into the north sooner. One of the challenges that I face as the Ontario Regional Chief is that, well, it's a regional allocation. We're not going to have forest fires in many places in the south like you're going to have in the north. Resources need to be allocated to the north. Assets, equipment needs to be here, ready for when that happens. As people of the land, we know that these fires are going to continue to intensify, which means the difficulty that our leadership, our communities face is going to continue for the very foreseeable future. We know this is a result of climate change. something that all of our people have stood strong against and said, is development worth it? This is the result that we see. The recovery going forward, we have 2 communities, almost a complete loss. The red tape needs to come down. Can't say that's the federal government's responsibility. That's the provincial government's responsibility. We have seen many levels of government respond quickly, rebuild camps, places where resource extraction happens. Those towns were built in 2 years. We expect the same to happen in this region as we continue to deal with not only a broken system, but recovery. And the recovery is going to be great. It's going to be difficult on our people. Many of our elders, our children have been traumatized. Chief talked about the 14-year-old coming to him. Is this what they want to happen to us? That's why it's important that we stand together and in unity. The Chiefs of Ontario is going to continue to advocate and push down those jurisdictional barriers, ensure that our First Nation leadership are leading the way in emergency management, are at the table, and the resources are there. Resources are there for our communities to plan. I heard a lot about on the news about it. Well, communities need to have emergency plans. Emergency plans. Emergency plans only go so far. And when communities are dealing with the issues of day-to-day that every one of our leadership has to deal with on a daily without a fire, without the threat of a forest fire, sadly, emergency planning is not at the forefront without the adequate resources to have the people to help support that. Because otherwise, it's something that's not achievable for many of our communities. Our fly-in communities, there needs to be immediate investments into the airports that support them. One of the challenges we face in this region, and many of you in this room know, but not everybody knows through those cameras, you can only get small planes in there. Community of 1,000 people. Take 30 more planes, small planes, to get those people out. Unacceptable. The infrastructure in small remote airports needs to be made so that larger planes can get in and people can get out faster, so that the vulnerable are not having to be staged. What happens when we have to stage them at the priority of who should get out first? Unacceptable. It's a broken system. So I want to say to all of our elders, our children, and our leadership in the room, you're not alone. We're going to continue to push forward. Chief King has outlined the accountability and what needs to be done. Absolutely. Absolutely. All of our chiefs have talked about a broken system and the threats. And we know that the fire season is not over. We have been very lucky. As the chief mentioned, we thank the Creator for today. We thank the Creator that we have not had a loss of life thus far. And our leadership's going to stand shoulder to shoulder to make sure that it continues to remain that way. That the resources are there and that accountability is there for for this system that is broken. So with that, I'll go Chief King for the opportunity. And I look forward to being in the north here in a few days, hearing from the youth, the elders. And I want to say Yamago Miigwech to all those who extended support. Our office has received many communities, Indigenous, non-Indigenous, saying, how can we help? How can we support? And we appreciate that support that's being given. So, Yamago.
Miigwech, good afternoon. I just want to acknowledge everyone here, members of the community, the leadership that's up here, and also the leadership that's in the audience, members of the media. Thank you so much for being here with us this afternoon. The bottom line is this. Doug Ford fell asleep at his tractor on his way to the ring of fire. And their haste to extract our resources in our territories, both Ontario and Canada, are ignoring the immediate threats our communities are facing because of climate change. Climate change is real. All you have to do is step outside and smell the air. It's playing out in real time. And it's our communities that are the most vulnerable. And we should not allow our communities to fend for themselves, to try to keep themselves safe. We shouldn't leave it up to a 13-year-old. I just want to acknowledge Chance, who was here in the room earlier, to run for their lives and to try to save their fellow community members. And I just want to say to Ontario and Canada officials, I know they are listening. I know they are tuned in to this press conference, that we will hold you accountable for your failures. We will make sure that what we are experiencing right now does not happen again. And finally, to Chiefs Pavla and to Chief Drake, that we are committed to working with you to rebuild your communities. We will be there with you in the days and months ahead to make sure that your community members have a place to go back to, because that is their home. So thank you so much for joining us here this afternoon. We wanted to hold this press conference today to counter some of the narrative that Ontario is promoting out there, that they are in regular contact with our leadership. They are not. They were here on Saturday, Premier Doug Ford, some ministers were here as well, and they didn't even bother to reach out to any First Nation leader, including Chief Solomon, including those chiefs that are most directly impacted by these fires. And so it's important that we provide a forum for our leaders to tell their story. And that is why we are here. That is why we are here this afternoon. So miigwech, thank you for being here.
Miigwech to all the leadership that's up here today. I just want to let the chiefs and the people that are here today, the leadership, when we heard that Namagusa Gegong had burnt to the ground, I notified my council back home. I was at the AFN assembly, and on Monday, my brother called me and said, I think they're going to evacuate Armstrong, and then sure enough, they did at 10:30 at night. I think the evacuation came in. The next day, I contacted my council and I said, well, what do you guys think? And they said, smoke and ashes are lining in the community. And at 4 p.m. on July 14th, we declared a state of emergency, and we had the emergency evacuation, mandatory evacuation. Some of our elderly people and children left on Sunday night, and others left on Monday before we declared the emergency. Gull Bay's been through a couple of emergencies in the past, so we know the process very well. And we didn't wait for M&R to tell us to leave. We knew the conditions out there, very dangerous conditions. Gull Bay right now is surrounded by 4 major forest fires. The one to the north of us is one of the largest fires in the history of Ontario. The one to the west of us is growing fast, and we have westerly winds heading towards Gull Bay. And we have 2 more to the south of us, which could join. But the leadership of the community did this all on their own, and I thank my council for standing up with Chief to call that state of emergency, and also want to thank all the elders and members that have left and helped us with the evacuation. I want to thank my staff as well. I have very, very good staff that is working hours and hours and hours to make sure our citizens are looked after. I also want to thank, the countless Canadians out there who have reached out and offered support, financial, any support that they may give. And, we're very, very thankful for that. There's so much help coming from individuals, organizations, companies, but yet hardly any help from the federal or the provincial government. So I want to thank all those people because, like you said, what the chief had said earlier, that, there are many Canadians who are standing behind us in this fight. So with that, I want to thank all the leadership up here. I want to thank all the council members who are supporting their communities, also the chiefs that are out there today, and all the citizens of our nations. So, and also I want to personally thank my friend, Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler, for helping with the media in terms of organizing this. So, Chimigwich to him and Chimigwich to all you people. We're going to fight this to the very end. Chimigwich. We have questions now for the media. If you would state your name and what media outlet you're with, and you could pose your question to anybody on the panel.
Joey Langdon with TBT News here in Thunder Bay. Chief Pavala, Mike Harris said that the fire that destroyed your community was started that same day. Our records show that fire is burning since May. Do you chalk that up to an intentional breach of trust or the minister being unaware of his own ministry's data?
That fire was not started that day. We do have, we've been in talks with other people who gave the notice to us that there was something burning out there. Unfortunately, it was a lot closer, to our community than what we were told. That we were told not to worry. We were told that the fire was at, so our community is at mile 21 along the CN line. We were told that it was just smoldering coming in from mile 25, or 35 and 40, so.
Thank you. And Grand Chief Fiddler, the Premier held his press conference on Fort William First Nation land. His government has previously made a point of inviting Chief Solomon to funding announcements. Do you think the snub for this press conference was intentional?
I think that's a question for Premier Doug Ford for him to answer. He knows that the wildfires we are seeing right now in our region, many of them are within the doorstep of many of our communities, and it's our people that are most impacted by what is happening out there. And so you would think that the respectful thing to do is to reach out to those people that are most impacted by these fires. And so you would have to ask him why he chose not to include First Nations in his visit on Saturday.
All right. Sarah Law, CBC News, Thunder Bay, too short for this microphone. This question is for Chief King. You're seeking an independent review of the government's wildfire response. What would a good response plan look like that includes input directly from First Nation communities?
Well, I think what we're calling for is a public inquiry into what happened, and it would investigate all matters of public interest, especially in relation to wildfires. When I happened to bump into Premier Ford when he visited the Fort William Gardens, and I caught him, I guess, off guard because he didn't expect to see a chief there. I was with two of my counselors, and for lack of a better word, I wasn't too kind to him because I expressed my complete disappointment in terms of his reaction to addressing the situation. What's required is a complete overhaul of the system. What's required is the involvement of First Nations dealing with the federal and provincial government and First Nations involvement. We can't be an afterthought. We have to be there at the table to structure these responses where First Nations are at least given the authority in terms of expenditures and that sort of thing. We have to get approvals of expenditures. Thankfully that we were in a position to expend our own funds to get our people to Thunder Bay, and those sort of things. Dealing with different ministries and getting that those approvals. I said, let's forget about that. Let's just get our people out of there. Let's get them into hotels and so forth. And we're quite lucky. We're quite fortunate that we managed to get, because when we were told that there was no availability of rooms in Thunder Bay, and they were prepared to send us to Hornpain, Ontario. And I said, I don't know what's in Hornpain. I've been through there as a kid on the train, but there's not much there. Then they said they were going to send us to Toronto. And there's no resources for our people in Toronto, and we were quite fortunate that we pushed, and we managed to get rooms for our people in Thunder Bay at the Ramada Inn.
Thank you. My follow-up question is for Chief Wanakamek. I can only imagine how hard it is staying in a community so far from home, like Chief King was saying. What support do you want to see in these host communities for your people, especially around their mental health?
I know, first of all, I guess I wanted to read page 4 of my statement here. We are calling upon the province to immediately confirm in writing that it will reimburse all reasonable costs incurred by White Sand in supporting off-reserve evacuees, including accommodations, food, transportation, staffing, and other emergency response expenses. We're also calling for a full explanation of why repeated warnings were dismissed, why White Sand was assaulted, assured there were no danger, and why mandatory evacuation took so long to issue. White Sand First Nation will continue to protect our members and assist our neighbors. However, we will not accept the province shifting its responsibilities and the financial consequences of lackluster response onto our nation. What was the question again?
Looking at the mental health support needed for evacuees when they're so far away from home and isolated from their community supports.
Well, the LECO has been providing support for us here in the hotel. They are here on a daily basis, and we also have our own people supporting our people in the community and in meetings and community updates. And actually, some of my council members are also helping out in the mental health issues that our people are experiencing.
I believe the Ontario Regional Chief wants to respond to that question as well.
Acknowledging the question wasn't directly to me, but I can't reiterate enough how emergency response is contracted service from the federal government to the provincial government, meaning that planes that are hired to go in is chartered by the province, meaning that all services provided to First Nations when they're out of community is provided by the province. But the federal government pays at the end of the day. But who makes the decisions is the federal government. And so what happens is that what we've seen the Chiefs community was that they wanted to be the vulnerable evacuated. The MNR was telling the federal government that the threat is not that high. They should wait. They need to wait. The chief is saying, my people need to go. And it was only at that time when our office with the Grand Chief Fiddler's office had intervened and asked the federal government to send the Canadian Armed Forces in to remove them. Because otherwise it would have been the chartered services that were going into the communities to remove them. And so that is the jurisdictional barrier that exists, is that the feds tell the province, communities in emergency, they need to be removed. And the province makes the determination of when that's going to happen and how that's going to happen. The federal government only pays, but the province does all of the procurement and the decision making. And so that's why the system is broke, because the First Nations are not making those decisions. In fact, they're third party removed because the federal government is paying for the province to do the work. And the First Nation should be at the table when those decisions are made. I just wanted to reiterate that, it's a contracted service when emergency management happens.
Hi, I'm Maya Ekman with TB News Watch. You talked a bit about a lack of communication with Minister Greg Rickford. This question's for really anyone. Has any conversation happened with Mr. Rickford at all? And if not, what attempts have been made to make contact?
Can you repeat that? Is that for me?
It's for really anybody who has made contact with Minister Greg Rickford, if anyone, and if not, what attempts have been made?
Premier Ford hasn't reached out to me, neither has Rickford, or even the Minister of Natural Resources. Nobody has reached out to us, and they're the ones that are responsible. And I think this is why we're holding this press conference here today, because like I said, yesterday when I heard that he was having a press conference at 10:30, I watched it, and he did not mention First Nations once. And when I started talking to him, when I happened to bump into him at the Red Cross Center, he wanted to talk about mining. I said, I'm not here to talk about mining, I'm here to talk about wildfires. So nobody has reached out. The only minister that's reached out to us was Patty Hadju, our local member of parliament. But I wish she was here too, because the federal government also has a responsibility as well, And I would have to concur with President Donald Trump when he said Ontario's mismanaging their forests, and I have to agree with him, unfortunately, because the minister and the Ontario government is mismanaging the forests.
Thank you. And then also kind of building off of consultation, were any chiefs or other community leaders consulted in planning the evacuation reception center at the Fort William Gardens here in town? And what did you think about the center?
Well, that's one of the things that the Premier had said, well, as his minister of that was responsible, she said that the facility at the Fort William Gardens is for the community of Collins, didn't mention First Nation, and also said the community of Armstrong. Didn't mention that they were for First Nation. So that facility is supposed to be for unincorporated communities. And I don't know how they expect elders to sleep on a cot, I think that's one of the problems we're having, is that I looked at the facility and it's crazy that we're asking elders to sleep on a cot at the Fort William Gardens. It's in the curling rink, actually. If you get a chance to go there, they have to use the showers of the hockey teams and so forth. So that's not acceptable. I'm sorry.
Thank you all.
Just one of the things too that people need to know is that when the government is saying that 13 communities have been evacuated, in fact, 8 of those are First Nations. And so it means the bulk of what is being portrayed in the news of communities being evacuated is First Nation communities. It's not, and Chief King is right, it wasn't said that these are First Nations citizens and First Nation communities. It was just broadly said that there's, I think they said 13 communities have been evacuated. 8 of them are First Nation communities.
I'm John Thompson. I'm with Ricochet Media. I spoke to you, Chief King, 4 times in about a half an hour as those decisions were going back and forth. And you were the first chief to tell me that you weren't being given the proper information, but you were expected to make decisions and carry the incumbency of those decisions. Do chiefs need the critical infrastructure data that Canada has in order to make the decisions they're making regarding evacuations?
I think that it was very illustrative when a community northwest to you is burnt to the ground, approximately 50 kilometers from your home community. The community north of us, people were evacuating at 10:30 at night. People were knocking on doors, getting people out at 4 o'clock in the morning in that community. We knew the situation. Like I said, when you have smoke and embers landing in your community, one of the things I asked EMO when we were on a call, I said, should we declare the emergency? And the answer we got was, well, it's up to you. I said, up to me? I said, you guys are the experts. You know where the fire is. There was no communication from MNR in relation to our First Nation. They didn't tell us anything, the size of the fire, where they were at, and so forth. So because we were in evacuations before and we didn't get the help, we voluntarily made the declaration that we are going to ask for a mandatory evacuation and we're calling a state of emergency. But that has to be done by the community. And still, even if you declare that state of emergency, it doesn't really take effect until they receive it. And my understanding is that there is implementation order that was issued yesterday by the MNRF, and it came into effect at 12:01. But communities were not notified in terms of the gravity of the situation. We evacuated on our own because we knew it would take time. We knew that that the MNR wasn't coming to our rescue. There was no communication with MNR in relation to the fire situation. Like I said, we have a map that's posted where it shows you that we're surrounded basically on all sides. And these fires are all out of control still. They're not under control. So, that communication, there was a complete communication breakdown. And I feel for my neighboring communities that had to basically run out on the last minute notice, and that's a complete abdication of the provincial government's responsibility to ensure that our people are safe and we're safe, and yet they failed us miserably.
Thank you, sir. You mentioned systemic barriers and systemic challenges. This is a question I'd like to put to you if Grand Chief Fiddler would like to speak to that for his background as well, and anybody else who wants to chime in on that. We've heard communication. We've heard the devolution of powers. If we have an inquiry, what do we expect that inquiry will cover in terms of systemic challenges?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think it's important to note that all of us knew that this was going to happen. Like, we shouldn't be caught off guard every time there is a severe fire season. We went through the same thing. I was just looking through my social media, some of my postings from 5 years ago, exactly July of 2021. We had a very severe fire season that year. We presented a plan to Doug Ford at that time that outlines what the emergency system should be designed in a way that we are a part of that First Nations have some sense of ownership of that emergency system because it affects them the most. But I remember he was here, Premier Doug Ford was here in person, and I remember going to him at the Valhalla Inn, and I gave him that package. And I told him, this is our plan. This is our emergency response plan that you need to work with us on to design, to finalize and implement. And he never even responded to that. And so here we go again. Like, it's almost every time we are faced with this situation, we are flying by the seat of our pants. And we shouldn't. It's too dangerous. Like, we cannot risk the lives and the well-being, the safety of our people year after year because we don't have a plan.
Oh, the mic.
Chief Wankamik here. I just wanted to make a remark on Premier Ford's speeches. And always get a chuckle, $150 million. Where did that go? It didn't come in our area. He also talked about forest fire expert. He's not. They're not. We are. We have people on the ground that know that what the fire is, where it is, especially where all that smoke is coming from. So we are the experts on the ground at home. I'd also like to make a statement about the loss of life. We did lose an elder Stella Wobbeson, who was buried or had a funeral yesterday. She was medical evacuated on the day of the fire. She was having a hard time with her breathing from all the smoke. So that we did lose somebody in our community. I just wanted to point that out also.
Good afternoon, Mike McDonald, APTN National News. This question is for anybody, really. It's in relation to the public response to this situation, especially in contrast to the action or rather the inaction of the federal and provincial governments. What do you make of the outpouring of donations, the outpouring of support from just regular Canadians with regard to the evacuees and helping them to get through this?
Chief King, Gull Bay First Nation, we are grateful for that. We've had so much support from average Canadians, offering whatever support they can. And, we've received so much support that we don't know where to put it. That tells you that Canadian hearts are open for our communities. And unfortunately, Premier Ford is not responding the way he should. He should respond like all Canadians have, and they have opened their hearts to our communities. And we're trying to organize that right now in terms of, I was told that White Sand First Nation had received so much donations that they offered that to Gull Bay as well. So, and that's what we're doing here. We're offering support for each other. We have donations as well that we would like to share with every community members as well. So it's been remarkable. The people of Canada, Ontario, have really come forward and to assist our communities. So.
So it goes back to my original statement. When we say Anishinabek means mankind, of course mankind is going to help that way because it involves lives and property and taking care of our own. Getting back to Grand Chief's point about taking care of our own, we have firefighters that are ready, available to fight these fires closer to home. And this is what I challenge to the governments. I challenge you to give us that resource because we could take care of our own. Unfortunately, I'm going to share this with everybody. In our language, that means you be careful and you be cautious when you go out and take care of your people. Because that's the mentality and that's what we need to think when we go out and fight for our people. There's a reason why we say that, because what's out here sometimes you can't trust. Because it wasn't by choice that this had to be this way. We didn't design it in a way that we had to go and depend on the government for all this. But unfortunately, that's reality. So I challenge the government again. I challenge you to put that resource and put it in our hands so we can control it and take care of our own. And that's what I keep on saying. When I became a chief again, and this is why I say I take this hard when I say I'm a warrior chief. I will take care of my fellow chiefs. I will stand by my chiefs as a leadership group, but I challenge, and I look at that camera, I challenge the Ford. Put your mouth where your money is. And then I challenge you to support and give us that resource. We need to take care of our own. It takes you 4 days to take care of my people. If I had it, it would take me that day to take care of my people and put that fire out. My fire was just 2 kilometers down the road. And guess what we did? We went there and took it upon ourselves to try and put it out, because we know it's going to spread pretty quick. We know what that means. We have those teachings in us. It's just how we incorporate this in the way we need to do things in today's society. And again, I put that challenge out to them.
I want to respond to one of the questions that was asked earlier. It's to do with the who contacted my First Nation. Premier Ford did not call. Minister Rickford did not, as well as Minister of Natural Resources. The only person that called me, that was what 10 o'clock at night, is our member of Parliament, Minister Haidio. And that's where we started connecting to do something urgently in our area. So I would like to thank her for that. And when I talked about that we took the matter in our own hands, had we had the resources, that big fire across the lake from us would not have happened. We would have deployed our crew immediately that were trained, but no resources to do so. So, again, 3 days, they did not respond. So that's just the way it was, and unfortunate that we Indigenous people are put in the back burner at all times. They had other priorities, and it should not be that way. That is not right.
Is there any more questions from the media? I believe some of the chiefs want to make some concluding comments. Is there anybody that wants to make, oh, your question over here?
I got a question for Elton Fiddler, maybe the regional chief, about what people have been just saying about starting up maybe possibly our own fire department. Hello, it's Rick Garrick. I'm doing a story for the Wildwater News. I was wondering if regional chief and grand chief want to make a few comments on what they've been just discussing, starting up possibly fire organizations to fight fires in our region. Gwitch.
Yeah, Miigwech, for that question. I don't think it's just a question of creating our own fire departments. It's much more than that. I think what we're saying is that we need to create our own not just fire emergencies, but emergency systems that will work for our communities. And that includes incorporating the strengths and the assets that we already have in our communities, for example, to train or to utilize community members that are already trained to fight these fires, but also to utilize traditional knowledge that is there. That is so important. For example, we heard from the leadership and people of Collins that they kept telling the province that there were fires nearby their community back in May. And yet they were ignored by MNR, by people in the province, trying to minimize the threats that they were already trying to highlight to those in authority. And yet they were not heard. And so it's so important as we design our own systems that we incorporate the knowledge of our knowledge keepers to ensure that our own systems that we had back then to protect ourselves and to keep ourselves safe are incorporated into the work that we need to do.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the question. Not too much more to add. The work that I do as the regional chief is continuing to push the inherent jurisdiction of our communities and building capacity. Grand Chief is absolutely right. These systems that we rely upon are based upon systems that are foreign to many of us. We have various firefighting capabilities in all of our communities, some more than others, but having the tools, the resources for our nations to build those teams that is needed, and the ability to do that without interference by government is what will make a successful strategy to ensure that we are helping, that we are managing and protecting our communities from the fire perspective. So, you know.
Actually, there's one thing I would like to add, sorry. It came to my mind. There's one thing I've neglected to mention earlier is the resources needed to be in the region, not centralized all over the place, because we're missing that point. When there's an emergency fire happening, who are you going to run to? Even some of the groundwork people didn't even know, they had to wait for approval or word to move ahead and tell people to evacuate. Again, I want to do a shout out to Kelly from Windigo. If it wasn't for her calling me Monday, geez, must have been about 4 p.m. saying that there's a fire, you need to evacuate. It's going to roll through your community probably that evening. What do? You know, like it's making sure that we have our crews available, funding to for the crews, and we know that we need them in the region, not anywhere else. Up north is very critical. We lost a lot of territory, a lot of land, a lot of wildlife. You know, I'm really concerned about our wildlife as well. Thank God we didn't lose anybody in the fire, like personally myself in my community, but I'm grateful for all the supports that are out there. Again, we need to make sure our region is taken care of, our northwestern Ontario is taken care of. So, Chimigwech.
I want to offer now any of the First Nation leadership that want to have some concluding comments.
I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for attending, and thank the leadership for being leaders in this situation. We've heard that the province and the country are lacking leadership in this particular instance, and so here we are again now relying on each other. You know, and I just wanted to, there was a question about the Canadians. We have a lot of donations. There's a lot of donation centers here, but I just wanted to acknowledge, and I know one of the chiefs said there were some hiccups, but there's a lot of host communities like Thunder Bay and other communities, Niagara Falls, that are hosting our people that, you know, big influx of people coming out one particular time, dealing with, you know, how we're going to get paid, all these different things. You don't realize how smooth things roll until they're not smooth. But we need to acknowledge all those host communities. There's volunteers in those communities. There's people taking them food and whatnot. This is, you know, warms my heart, other than the fact that, you know, we wish we didn't have to do that. But regular Canadians, you know, are you know, showing support, and that's one of the reasons that we're reaching out, you know, to show them, to put that pressure on their parliamentarians to make sure that we have the proper support that is needed. And I just wanted to say, you know, in the case of Name, you know, I sat with them and I talked about with them, and I learned from them how they built their community, how the challenges are, aside from any fire, aside from any rebuild, just to be able to build a house, the resources that it takes, the collaboration it takes, you know, and now they're going to have to do it all, a total rebuild. And I just wanted to end on a shout out. I know a lot of you follow social media. I haven't met the young man yet, but the 13-year-old boy who was in that boat by himself turned around, facing the heat, going back to help other people get out of that community. It's a 13-year-old boy doing a man's work, you know, in absence of people there to help them. They're helping themselves, and I wanted just to acknowledge that young man and all the people that, you know, assisted their community members in getting out. I've never been in that situation. My community's been evacuated, but never in an, you know, in an emergency situation. We have evacuation plans, but, you know, we're well resourced in the south. You know, my heart goes out to those people in the north, particularly those who are going to have to rebuild in their communities. And I just wanted to echo what the last chief had said. My heart feels for all of those animals that are out there too, all those birds. Those are our relations, and you know, we have to think of them too. So we're going to rebuild and make our forest stronger for them as well. So with that, I say miigwech, and thank you all for being here. Miigwech.
Chief Wankamik. No, I forgot what I was going to say. Anyway, I just want to thank all the people that came by and membership. A few days ago, I'd asked staff and IFNA to do a press release, and I don't know how Chief King got word of that. He must be listening to me somehow. Anyway, I'm glad that this happened. I like to get the messages out to the government and to I guess inform our people on what's happening, not only with white sand, but Namegas, Sagagan, Namegas is a whitefish. Trout, sorry. I'm a good Nishnawbe. But it's, that's the translation of Namegas, Sagagan. And I just wanted to say again that we will offer support to Namegas, Sagagan again, and Gull Bay and Whitewater, the ones that have been or are getting affected. And I'd like to thank White Sand membership for just standing strong and believing that our command team is doing a good job, and I know they are. In my absence, they have been doing a tremendous good job. Thank you, the Chief of Incident Command, Devin. He's doing a great job, and the Bank Council also is present, and also our Special Advisor, Darian, Kchimigach, Mia.
Miigwech. So I just want to say thank you, Chief King, for the invite, for inviting the Mixtasagagan here. And what I do want to do, though, is that I really want to acknowledge my staff, my workers, my community members that evacuated the community. And I really have to get out there that we had no notice from MNR. We had no notice at all. We weren't helped in any way. It was just them. It's them that did this. So first of all, I'd like to acknowledge Scotty Frank, Monty Frank, Wayne was taken, Trillin Quandabens, Tayden Quandabens, Mikey Wesley, Chance Pavla, Lyndon Pavla, and from CN, if it wasn't for Riley, who called me, just to warn me, like it was just within under an hour after he called that my community burnt down. But he was the only guy who gave us the warning to run, get your members out of there. And the other CN worker is Ryan Wesley. So I'd just like to acknowledge them that they did this evacuation. They're the ones who saved my members and saved themselves. Kachimigwech.
Okay, that concludes our press conference. Again, I want to thank all the leadership that are here today, all the citizens of our community, all the Wapshkiwe that is here as well that is supporting us, and I want to thank everybody for coming. Chimigwech to everybody, and we're all together. Miigwech.
I'm Guy Borgway. I'm the MPP from Mushkegowuk, James Bay. We really want to copy this resolution, and my leader's right there, but we really want. No, hey. No, don't apologize. You have enough to deal with. Trust me. No disrespect that at all.